after you hear them. Scratching, whispering, begging you to come back and look again. This is one of those stories. It starts with a teenage girl disappearing without a trace in 1994. No body, no suspects, no goodbye. The town moved on. The police closed the case. Her family buried an empty coffin. And then, 18 years later, a diary shows up, not in an attic, not in an evidence locker, but in a thrift store, sitting on a shelf between a stack of used cookbooks and a church hymnal. What it revealed rewrote everything the town thought it knew. This is a story of Emily Hart, a girl who vanished but never really left. Cedar Bluff, Oregon, population 4,200. A quiet town tucked between pine forests and a river that looked peaceful, unless you knew what it was capable of during flood season. It was the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked, where the grocery store kept a jar of free lollipops for kids, and where nothing ever really happened, except something did. Emily Hart was 16 years old in the summer of 1994. Soft-spoken, artistic, the kind of girl who scribbled poetry on the margins of her homework. She lived with her parents, Ronald and Helen, and her older brother, Mark. The Harts weren't wealthy, but they were close. Emily walked everywhere, to school, to choir practice, to the ice cream shop where she worked weekends. And then one evening, she walked into the twilight and never came home. To this day, people in Cedar Bluff still talk about the heat that night. The air thick, the sky pink, the whole town glowing like it was holding its breath. At 9:15 p.m., Emily's shift ended. She signed out with her usual smiley face beside her name. She waved goodbye to her boss. She headed down Maple Street. And then nothing. When Emily didn't come home by midnight, her parents assumed she'd stayed with a friend. When morning came and her bed was still empty, they called the police. Cedar Bluff officers searched the roadside, the forests, the riverbanks. Volunteers combed through bushes and old barns. Helicopters circled the area. There were no signs of a struggle, no dropped belongings, no footprints, nothing, like she had evaporated. Rumors swept through the town fast, too fast. Some said she ran away. Others said she had a secret boyfriend. Others whispered darker things. By week 3, the case went cold. By year 2, the town hardly mentioned her name anymore. By year 10, she was a tragic memory. And by year 18, she was almost forgotten. Almost. The diary appeared on a rainy afternoon in 2012. A woman named Grace Dalton walked into a thrift shop called Second Chances, looking for old picture frames. She was a teacher at the local middle school, a quiet soul who loved antiques. On the bottom shelf, she noticed a faded blue journal, worn edges, a broken spine, the kind of thing that looks like it's lived a life. The name on the inside cover stopped her cold. Property of Emily Hart. Even after 18 years, the name meant something. Grace bought it for 50 cents. She expected doodles, teenage complaints, crushes, normal things. But what she found made her hands shake. The final entry was dated July 16th, 1994, the night Emily disappeared. And it ended with this sentence: "If something happens to me, it's because of him. I think he's tired of waiting." Emily's diary wasn't chaotic or dramatic. It was painfully ordinary at first. Descriptions of school, drawings of the forest, notes about her best friend Sarah. But as pages turned, a pattern emerged. Emily mentioned a man, always indirectly, always carefully. Saw him again today at the corner, pretending to read the newspaper. Mom thinks I'm being dramatic, but I know what I saw. He follows me, not every day, but enough. There was a protective quality to her writing, like she didn't want to scare anyone, but also didn't know who to trust. Then came the entry that investigators would later call the heart of the case. I think he came to the ice cream shop today. He didn't order anything, just stared. He looked at my name tag. And then, the line that changed everything. He said my name. Chills. Grace Dalton went straight to the police with a diary. And this cold case, frozen for 18 years, suddenly roared back to life. Detective Lena Ramirez, from the Oregon State Police, was assigned to the case. She'd been 10 years old when Emily vanished, And she remembered the flyers, the vigils, the fear. Now she was holding the girl's voice in her hands. But the first question was obvious. How did the diary end up in a thrift store? The store owner said the journal came in a donated box from an estate sale. A woman named Martha Collins, recently deceased. Collins had lived alone. No children. No known connection to the Hart family. Why would she have Emily's diary? Detectives searched Collins' home. In her basement, they found boxes of old belongings she collected over decades, abandoned storage unit purchases, thrift store finds, auction leftovers. A hoarder, meaning the diary could have come from anywhere. The trail once again blurred, but they had something they never had before, Emily's own words. Detectives combed to the diary for clues, descriptions, locations, schedules. Emily mentioned a tall man, always wearing a brown coat, graying hair, smelled like cigarettes, walks funny like he hurt his knee once. This sparked a memory from Mark Hart, Emily's brother. He told detectives that a man matching that description had approached Emily once outside school, asking for directions, but standing too close. The school's janitor at the time, Walter Briggs, also fit the description. Briggs had retired in 1998 and moved 2 towns over. Detective Ramirez visited him. Briggs denied everything. But his knee? Badly injured in 1992. He smoked. He owned a brown coat. Things were lining up until the biggest twist dropped. Briggs had an ironclad alibi for the night Emily disappeared. He was in the hospital for a heart procedure. Case cracked? Not even close. The diary wasn't pointing toward one suspect. It was pointing toward 2. Deep in the middle of the diary, buried between pages about homework and choir practice, was an entry investigators initially overlooked. Emily wrote, "He's not the only one. Someone else knows. Someone close. Someone close." Detective Ramirez went back through everyone in Emily's orbit. Friends, neighbors, co-workers. That's when she found him. Tom Weaver. He lived 3 houses down from the Harts. He fixed lawn mowers for a living. Soft-spoken. Kept to himself. But here was the kicker. Tom Weaver had volunteered for all 3 search parties when Emily disappeared. He was always the first to arrive. Always the last to leave. And he owned a brown coat. Detectives dug deeper. In 1994, Weaver had been arrested twice for trespassing on private property. Both times, witnesses reported the same thing. He was standing outside teenage girls' windows. With new suspicion, investigators got a warrant to search Weaver's house. His basement was meticulously organized, tools hanging from hooks, shelves labeled neatly, nothing out of place. But behind a false wall, hidden so expertly that agents almost missed it, they found a wooden box. Inside, a gold bracelet engraved with the letter E, a cassette tape labeled July 16th, a lock of hair, and a map of Cedar Bluff, with Emily's walking route highlighted. Detective Ramirez described as the most chilling moment of her career. The diary had led them exactly where Emily never wanted to go. The cassette, tape cracked, everything open. It contained a rambling, disjointed monologue from Tom Weaver, a disturbing confession without actually saying the words. He talked about a girl who didn't appreciate attention. He talked about finally having a chance to make her listen. He talked about stopping her from leaving. The tape ended with a sound that investigators could only describe as a struggle and then water. The river. They knew where to look. Divers searched the Cedar Bluff River for 2 days. On day 3, wedged beneath a collapsed section of riverbank, they found what the Hart family had waited nearly 2 decades for. A fragment of clothing. A bone. DNA confirmed it. Emily Hart had finally been found. Her family cried. The town cried. Even some of her former teachers came to stand by the river. It wasn't closure, not really, but it was something. Tom Weaver was arrested at 6:14 a.m. on a Sunday. He didn't fight. He didn't ask why. He just said it was only a matter of time. When detectives presented the diary, his face went pale. "That shouldn't have shown up," he whispered. He refused to explain. To this day, no one knows how the diary ended up in Martha Collins' boxes. But one thing was clear. The diary saved the case. Tom Weaver was convicted of murder and sentenced to life without parole. The trial was packed every day. Parents held their children a little closer. Windows got locks. The town changed. As for Grace Dalton, the woman who found a diary, she said she wakes up sometimes wondering what made her pull that book off.